Don't be. It's not going to be too good. But anyway, we're going to start from now. Good evening, everybody, and welcome. First of all, we'd like to welcome you all here on behalf of Nick, his beautiful bride, the new Mrs. Hollywood. Well, apparently she's not actually taken the name yet, but anyway, we'll go with it. And of course, everybody who has helped organise tonight. We know many of you have travelled a long old way to be here, so an especially warm welcome to you. I'm sure you'll all agree it's been a cracking day so far. And the best is yet to come. So without further ado, we'll get on with just that.
As I'm sure you're all aware, this is the point in the evening where the gentleman to the right of myself trawl through the darkest caverns of Nick's past and regale you with all those stories. And we have trawled through those caverns, and they are pretty grim and dark. But you'll actually be pleased to know that most of those stories are actually just incriminating, if not more, for Sean and myself in the afternoon. And not being in the own foot shooting business, we decided to leave a couple of those back in the car. Having said all that, we've known Nick a long time, so hopefully, despite that, there'll be a few things here for everyone over the next couple of minutes.
So I guess we should start with young Nick. Because truthfully, he's not changed all that much from the rosy-cheeked, lanky. Yes, he used to be lanky. He actually used to be tall. He's not anymore. For that 9-year-old that was introduced to us over 2 decades ago. So for those of you who didn't have the pleasure of meeting Nick's acquaintance until a little later, I hope you'll see what we mean.
Picture the scene.
All of us?
1995. A school car park, 4 p.m. Friendships were blossoming in the way all good friendships do, because we had to do something whilst our mums nattered away about whatever it is mums nattered away about in the 90s, I think. Tracksuits, perms, all that good stuff. Anyway, so yeah, our friendships did blossom, the three of us, and the result of that was Nick, one evening, coming round for dinner at mine and my parents' house one evening, and throughout that whole evening we got a little spattering of everything that really you can still see in Nick today. Firstly, the charm offensive. Here he arrives, hair neatly combed, shoes neatly shined, sporting a big bouquet of flowers from a mum. And a proper firm man handshake from my dad. Hello, John, lovely to meet you. God damn, this guy is good.
But it wasn't just the parents who got a dose of the Hollywood charm. He quickly became popular and well-liked among kids and teachers alike. Being made captain of various sports teams, much to my annoyance at the time, and eventually even head boy. Much to everybody's surprise. But of course, it took a little more than just a spattering of charm to achieve all of this. And looking back, the drive and determination that is so evident in Nick's character now was becoming a part of him even then. There were 2 clear qualities that Nick had even before reaching his teens. The first of these being his loyalty, something that Mike and I have both seen throughout our lives. But the best example of this being his love for an underachieving, mediocre football club in Crystal Palace. The second being his confidence, more so than ability, in being able to make a buck. The first we saw of this was around the age of 12, when most boys were playing Nintendos or collecting football stickers. Nick had money in mind, so decided to start a small little modest collection of antique silver spoons. I think your reaction says it all there. Yeah. Quite a weird hobby for a 12-year-old boy to have. But hey, maybe one day Nick will make his millions and he'll have the last laugh. Anyway, sorry Mike, back to the story indeed. So, Nick arrives for dinner, and already he has Pauline and John like putty in his hands, with his smart little quips and and firm handshakes and all this. But we just sat down to dinner, just started eating, and not 3 mouthfuls into the meal, Nick pipes up, looks Mum square in the eye. Pauline, this food is terrible. Silence. Cold, deathly silence. Hangs around the table, lingers in the dining room. It's awful. After about 5-6 seconds, the little smile creeps across his 10-year-old face, and he's like, "Nah, Pauline, I'm just kidding. It's lovely." I can tell from your reaction in the 20 years odd since that you probably all have been on the receiving end of this. Well, my notes here say wit, so let's just go with wit. So, that was a small glimpse into Nick as a fresh-faced young lad. But then he became a man. And as I'm sure most of you here will know, well, statistically 50% of you here will, one of the first steps towards becoming a man is to pack your bags and travel, completely underprepared, to some exotic location half a world away. So Nick, now a 19-year-old adult human, arrives in Johannesburg, steps off the plane and into manhood. Of course, his first work becoming a man. Sorry. So of course, the first port of call was obviously the nearest bar. So with all worldly possessions in tow, minus his Palace shirts and spoon collection, Nick finds the nearest watering hole and takes a seat by the window and turns his mind to beer. Whilst Nick's back's turned, a local thief has managed to clamber through that window and steal his bag filled with everything for the next 6 months of travel, before that sweet beer had even touched his lips. This is a bad start to the trip for poor Nick. But of course, he had to get fully rehydrated first, and once he did, he then made the walk to the nearest police station, with nothing but the shirt on his back and the sunglasses on his head, the latter of which were then stolen from his head only moments later by another local opportunist who disappeared into the crowd. Things had just gone from bad to worse.
But fortunately, this downward spiral was not to last. Just months later, Nick found himself, as Margaret mentioned earlier, on the Koh San Road in Bangkok, with a thirst for rum and a head full of adventure. Yep. You heard. And it was here that he would meet a young Australian lass with a similar thirst for adventure. No. And a head full of adventure. And as Margaret mentioned again, they hit it off straight away, and in just a few hours, they become close enough that Lauren was like, "Hey man, you got to come back and stay with us in Oz." of course, and that's where he found himself just weeks later, and a beautiful romance blossomed. And so, yeah. I think to say, and the rest is history, might be oversimplifying things somewhat. There was a couple of trips back and forth to the UK for Lauren, and she helped us guys, certainly the three of us, move into London, and without her help and that of her friends, we probably wouldn't have been able to do that, and we'd probably, be living down the road from here. So yeah, thank you for that.
So thank you, Lauren. Anyway, months later, Lauren was actually back in Australia, but somehow closer than ever. So when she moved back to London again, it was finally time, as Margaret said, for the stars to align. You could see it from a mile off. I don't think any of us who were there that first night, when they were there and they saw each other, will forget the way they looked at each other. You can see it from a mile off.
You said that.
Alright, shut up. You could see it from a mile off. We knew it, they knew it. Even the most stone-hearted Grinch would have been melted by the love they clearly had for each other. And the best bit is, you look at them tonguing each other just there. You can see that love and that fire burns brighter than ever. So on that note, I'd like to ask you all to be upstanding and raise a glass to the bride and groom, Nick and Lauren. Now I'm gonna fucking drink. Somebody, drink. I'm just gonna drink.